All right, Gary and Ron, second half of the first season. To see the fan reaction has been incredible. You win a People's Choice Award. Obviously, the fans transition from the books to the series. When you see how people have taken to the show and the support that you've gotten, talk to me about it.
It's incredible. You know, it's a really dedicated and passionate fan base. I think one of the most gratifying things about doing the show has been, you know, the fact that they have embraced it and that they enjoy it, and that we keep hearing them say, "This is the book. This is what we were looking forward to. Thank you for not screwing it up." You know, and that's a really great thing.
Gary, as part of the Mackenzie clan, you guys represent in many ways the old guard. But there's a lot of new ideas infiltrating that old guard as Claire makes her way into the kingdom. Talk to me about those new ideas, because there's a lot of representation of what's happening in the real world today.
There certainly is. You know, I was just saying, when we watched that one of these episodes as a family, certain members of the family weren't allowed to see it, you know. But afterwards, we had a discussion about Claire's conditioning, her ideas, her way of seeing things, her perspective, and how different it is. And Mackenzie guys, we don't look too good in the light that she casts. But then we had this big discussion about 200 years down the line from now, from the 21st century, maybe we won't look too good. Maybe the guys here won't look too good. So Claire is like, I mean, she's like a whirlwind. A lot of it's very subtle. I think Colm is very intrigued by her. She's enormously enigmatic because he can sense there's something different here. But there's no way in hell he's going to suss out what that is. But at the same time, she's also potentially very dangerous, an unknown quantity. And it's really intriguing. It's very intriguing what she brings.
Ron, in adapting the books, obviously with that built-in fan base, was there pressure to stay very loyal to the books, or did you have and did you feel like you had a tremendous amount of creative freedom to really take the stories and the relationships in a direction that you wanted to go?
Yeah, it was a good balance. I mean, Starz from the outset said, "Hey, you know what? Do as faithful an adaptation as you can. Let's make the show for the fans, and then trust that the general audience will get excited by the same story that the original fans did," which was great. So then that gave me a lot of freedom to sort of say, "All right, let's really try to stick to as close to the book as we can." And in the writers' room, we would always put up the book order of events and dialogue, and then you would cut it up into pieces and say, "All right, but now it's an episode of television. So it has to be restructured so it has a, you know, beginning, middle, and end. What's the theme of this episode? You know, what's the emotional content?" So through that process, you're making changes and changing the story and the character directions and sequence of events and so on. But you're always trying to get back to where the book was. You're always trying to preserve the spirit of what this scene ultimately was about. So it was the perfect amount of here's the road we're all going to travel, but I have a lot of freedom about traveling that road.
One of the things I love with this story is we see the way things were back then, especially in the reverse time travel, the physicality, the real dastardly things that are done both to men and women. Are there ever moments where you say this might be pushing the boundaries too much, or do you see it as a platform where you can tell the story to its full maximum boundary pushing ability?
I always try to tell the story in full. You know, Diana's given us this great tale. I want to realize that tale, and there's some dark elements, there's some disturbing elements, there's some frank and graphic sexual elements. And in each of those things, you look at it, okay, we're going to do this part of the story. What's the truth in it? Why are we showing it to you? What's the point where I don't want to look at it personally? And what's the point where I feel like, oh, I've cut back too far, now I've cheated it? And you just kind of have to make that call on an ongoing basis. You know, you make it in the editing room, you make it on the stage, you make it with the actors and the writers, and it's a continuing conversation. And ultimately, you have nothing but your own kind of just, you know, artistic sense of what's the right call.
Gary, one of the real fun parts of the show that I love, obviously it centers on Claire's love between Jamie and Frank, but to see your relationship with Graham on the show is just terrific, because there's this brotherly battling, it's just this almost contentious rivalry going on. Talk to me about that. You and Graham on the carpet last night, the chemistry is great, but to bring that to the show, talk to me about that.
I gotta say, there's a lot of things I just can't tell you fully. When I say it's a lot of fun, part of what we do is we invent backstories. We invent goings-on in Castle Leoch, which aren't in the books and aren't in the script, but they make sense to us. So I'll joke with Graham that maybe his his attitude towards women is getting out of hand. You know, he's obviously he's the father of my son, the heir to the clan. He's involved with, you know, Urt Gillis, he's involved, he's got a wife of his own. He's all over the place, you know. So we would joke that of an evening, Mrs. Fitz's door was booted in, and Graham would Dougal would make a drunken appearance there. And yeah, so this, we would try to not undermine each other, but have a go sometimes before takes, because, yeah, we need each other, but yeah, there's a lot of friction there.
You guys play such hard asses, and yet having gotten to see you on the red carpet and seeing you today, you're the nicest guys. Is it tough to get into hard ass mode?
Well, see, the thing is, this is the case. Because I'm a Scottish guy, I'm very familiar with the history which is represented in Outlander, and I know the very dark movements which are happening, which are underscoring this story. I mean, the whole thing about the Jacobite cause, which Dougal subscribes to, this story is moving inexorably towards a really terrible event, which is, you know, a true event in the history of Scotland. And I know where it's going, and I know how it impacts on everything. Nothing will ever be the same again. So that allows us to tap into the darkness and the seriousness of it very quickly, because it's backed up. It's backed up by a great script and a good story, but it's also backed up by history, in a sense, by culture, and by, you know, real events.
Ron, it's fascinating because casting makes the show great or can make the show really bad. And after seeing the first 8 episodes, you realize that the casting was so right on. And there were a lot of unknowns in this. In casting people like Gary and getting Katrina and Sam, what's been your take on putting this cast together and how it's all worked out?
It's a lot of luck. It really is. It's hard. Casting is a difficult process that you can't even really break down, because you're looking for things that sometimes you can't define, and it's the old saw about you know it when you see it, and that's really true. And you know, a lot of the casting is not just by me, but by Meryl Davis, my producing partner, Ira Bear, who's head of the writing staff, and you know, there's a lot of cooks in this kitchen. The network weighs in, the studio weighs in, I weigh in, we have a casting director. There's just a lot of people, and we're all panning for gold and waiting to see these little nuggets, and you just never know, and you never know why someone is the right person. But when you see it, you go, oh my God, that's Claire. Oh my God, that's Colum, and it's just so clear when it happens, but you can't really explain why.
Congratulations, guys. Thanks so much.